Hey friends, welcome to an online Sunday service with Red Deer Lake United Church. My name is Nick. I am the minister at Red Deer Lake United Church, and we are an affirming church that gratefully gathers on Treaty 7 land. And what we are all about is finding in the way of Jesus a new way to be human and alive in this world. A way we say is connected with God, each other, and ourselves. This way of life that's rooted in things like hospitality, community, justice, compassion, and spirituality. This way of life that transforms us so we can go out and help transform the world, turning it into one where everybody has enough, and everybody has a place. That is who we are. That is what we are all about. And this is our Sunday online service. This is a thing that we do each and every week, both in person and online, that helps root us in that life, that helps us become those kinds of people. This thing we do to sometimes let our bodies catch up with our spirits. This thing we do to remember that we are loved and we are enough just as we are. This thing we do to rumble with where our world is at and what it requires of us. This thing we do to find rest and grace. This thing we do to help becoming more and more and more the kinds of people that God calls us to be. People of light, life, and love. And so whoever you are, however you got here, whatever you're bringing in with you, know this. Here in this time, in this space with us, you are welcome, you are wanted, and you are accepted just as you are. Seriously, we mean that. No matter who you are, what your story is, what you believe, what your questions are, there is room for all of you and all of you here. And so knowing that, I invite you to lean into this, to just be as you are. Know that this is a good place to be. This is the right place to be. And that God, that source of life, that ground of being, that mystery underneath it all, that sacred energy that moves it all forward is with us, in us, for us, and around us. And so I invite you, if you are willing, to go find the chat box somewhere on your screen. I think it's going to be over here somewhere. Say hi. Let us know who you are. Let us know how you are doing. That is a great way for us to see you, to hear you, to connect with you, and let you know that you belong here. If that's not your jam and you're like, I just need to sit and just listen and feel, cool. Do whatever you have to do. That's the hack to all of these things, right? Just do you. Be open. Be receptive. Be willing. Be soft. But do you. Do you. And we trust that the Spirit will do her thing, making all things new. So use the chat as you will. Do whatever you want as you are here. But our hope and our prayer is that by the end of this, you will leave here feeling a little bit more alive, a little more grounded, a little more whole, a little more integrated, ready to go out and keep rumbling through whatever it is you're rumbling through, going to wherever it is you're needing to go, knowing that you're not alone, knowing that you are enough, and knowing that God is with you. And so as we head into our time, we're going to begin with this. We're going to have a moment of setting our intention, of saying, this is what I want to accomplish today. This is what I want to get out of this. This is what I'm here to do, which is always a beautiful thing to do, no matter what it is we're doing, to set our intention. And so we'll have a whole song for us to do that. It's this song of welcome, of opening, of receiving that Spirit, of breathing her in. And then we'll move into a spiritual practice. And so once again, it's so good that you're here. Thank you so much for joining us and being here. And as we head into all of this, as always, may peace be with you.
Come, you've been wounded, oh, you've lost hope. Come, you are longing for what you do not know. Come, you hungry for justice, aching for heaven on earth. Come, you've been tossed aside.
So I don't know about you, but this time of year, September, it always comes with this vibe of fresh starts and new beginnings. Anyone else? You know what I'm talking about? Like way more than January does, September always feels like the beginning of a new year. It's this time of going back to school and starting a new grade. It's this time of vacation ending and work beginning, of new rhythms, new routines, new practices beginning, right? Yeah, of course it has this vibe of newness and fresh starts. And because it has that, because we're all starting new things and entering into new experiences and we're going to be navigating all kinds of stuff, I want to offer us a mantra to hold on to, a spiritual practice for us to do as we head into all the things that are going to be pulling us in all kinds of directions. As we enter into new expectations. As we enter into failure and falling and learning and stumbling and being challenged and growing, I want to offer us a mantra we can do that can help keep us grounded in it all and remind us of something really insanely, ridiculously important, foundational, and crucial. And that's this. You are enough as you are. Yeah, you are enough just as you are. No matter what comes your way this year, no matter what kinds of things you fail at, no matter what kind of expectations are put upon you, you just as you are enough. And so for our spiritual practice today, we're just going to repeat that to ourselves. Because this is one of those things that we hear, we're like, yeah, I know, Nick, I know. But we just kind of like dismiss it. Everything else screams like, no, that's a lie. I am not enough. And so sometimes it takes some convincing, right? And that's what mantras do. They convince us. They rewire us. They give us a new narrative, a new set of beliefs for us to live out of. And so this time is going to be for you. For those of you who have ever felt like you're not enough. For those of you who know this is going to be a really difficult year that's going to really challenge you and stretch you, this is for you. And I invite you to use this time to repeat this, to say it as boldly as you possibly can, but to say it regardless. And begin to believe it. That you are enough just as you are. That you are enough just as you are. And so my friends, this time is for you. To say this, to believe it, to live out of it. And as we do this practice, may grace be with you. And so I invite you to put your feet on the ground. I invite you to sit up straight. I invite you to take a deep, deep breath. And let's say this together. I am enough just as I am. 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 And so as you hear yourself say those things, may you have the courage, the audacity to know that these things are true, that you are enough. That despite what you say, what anyone else says, that you are enough just as you are. And so as this new year approaches with all kinds of expectations and challenges and no doubts, all kinds of failures and falls and false starts, may you know nothing will ever change this. That you will always be enough just as you are. Because you just as you are loved and worthy and valued. And so once again, let's repeat this. Let's own this. Let's declare it even if we don't really believe it yet. And may we live as though this is true. I am enough just as I am. I am enough just as I am. Amen. God be with you. So I want to start the sermon by telling you a story about something that took place last week. It was a beautiful Saturday morning. Dawn and I were out doing errands, and we got it all done. We were feeling great, but we didn't want to go home and do the chores that were waiting for us. So we do what you always do when you procrastinate on chores. You get out of the house. We went out for lunch. We went out in our hood. We found a bar along 17th Avenue, and we ordered some food. It was great. It was amazing. We were just chilling out. And as we were looking outside the huge windows of the restaurant, we noticed that it was getting busier and busier outside. Like way busier than it usually gets on a Saturday afternoon along 17th Avenue. And people kept coming and coming and coming. And we noticed that everyone was kind of moving in the same direction. We noticed that they weren't only on the sidewalks, but they were also on the streets. And we noticed that they were carrying signs and they were chanting things and they had all purple shirts on. And we suddenly realized, like, oh my God, we're in the middle of an anti-vax protest. This is an anti-vax march. And the people, they just kept on coming. Thousands of them, easily 1,000 people were there in that block. And quickly we realized that, oh my God, we're surrounded. Like, we can't leave. Our car is stuck. And so we did what you do when you're stuck in the middle of an angry mob. We ordered a drink and we just watched. And we talked about what we saw. We talked about how the air had shifted, the whole energy had changed. And we noticed the signs. We noticed what people were saying. We saw things like this. And we saw other ones like this. We saw other ones like this. And we'd hear people shout, "Don't cover up my divine image. Don't cover up my divine image." And we'd hear people chant, "I follow Jesus, not Jason. I follow Jesus, not Jason." And now we can critique those all we want. I mean, they're not creative. They don't even rhyme. But what caught my attention is where they were all coming from. The source of it all. This idea of religious exemption. This idea that seems to argue that people are free, in this case, to not wear a mask, to not follow government guidelines, because they feel it goes against or compromises their religious freedoms. Right? Yeah, that's kind of what this idea is getting at. If you remember that church up in Edmonton earlier this year that kept getting in trouble because even though they were legally not allowed to, they kept having worship services. And so police came and the fence went up around it. The pastor, he went to jail. Yeah, that was religious exemption in work. They thought as people of faith, they were exempted from those protocols so they could go and actually practice their faith. They could have a worship service. And now I don't want to debate the ins and outs of religious freedoms and religious exemptions. I'm not really up for that today. But what I do want to talk about is how when I took all that in, as I watched those people protest, as I saw the signs and listened to the chants, I got to tell you, as a minister, as a person who considers themselves religious, as someone who tries to live out my faith and spirituality, it made me wonder if they had a point. It made me wonder if they were on to something. I couldn't help but ask, what are the religious exemptions that we actually do have? What do we as fans and followers of Jesus have the right not to do? And maybe you've wondered that too. It's kind of in the air. It's a question that maybe we're all kind of asking. And so today I thought we'd explore our tradition and see what religious exemptions we actually do have. And we'll explore a few of those, and then we'll talk a little bit about, well, where that leads us and what that calls us to do. And so the first religious exemption that I think we actually do have, and you can find this one in one of the letters a guy named Paul wrote. Paul was one of the writers of the New Testament. He was really the first guy to talk a lot about what it means to actually live out our faith, about what it looks like on a daily level, about how it should shape who we are and how we live and how we have our being. And get this. He said that one of the exemptions we have as people of faith, we are exempted from putting ourselves before others. Yeah, no, seriously, this is what he wrote. He said we're exempted from putting ourselves before others. Paul wrote, he said, do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility regard others as better than yourselves. Let each of you not look to your own interests, but to the interest of others. Yeah, another translation would put it this way, and it's always good to read a couple translations. This translation says, don't let selfishness and prideful agendas take over. Embrace true humility and lift your heads to extend love toward others. Get beyond yourselves and protecting your own interests. Be sincere and secure your neighbor's interests first. Yeah, that's what Paul wrote. That's what Paul wrote. According to our religion, according to our faith, we have the religious freedom to put others before ourselves. That we can protest any laws or systems that prioritizes some people above others. That we have an exemption from pride and ego and only thinking about our own interests, our own wants, and our own needs. We're exempted from all of that. Yeah. And in a world that is just so selfish, and in a world that seems to be becoming increasingly tribalistic, increasingly divided and antagonistic, what our spirituality does is give us an out. It says you don't need to be in on that. You don't have to participate in that. You're actually exempted from perpetuating that. You don't need to do that. You don't need to live like that. You're exempted from pride and ego and arrogance. You don't need to put yourself above others. Instead, do the opposite. Put others before you. Yeah, we're exempted from that. And Paul, he actually keeps on going. In a different letter, he says something else. In the letter to the Galatians, Paul writes this. It is absolutely clear that God has called you to a free life. Just make sure you don't use this freedom as an excuse to do whatever you want to do. Rather, use your freedom to serve one another in love. For everything we know about God's word is summed up in one single sentence. Love others as you love yourself. That is an act of true freedom. Yeah. As he said, it's pretty clear, isn't it? As people of faith, as religious people, we're exempted from being irresponsible. We're exempted from ignorance. We're exempted from arrogance. We don't get to do those things. We're exempted from not loving others. We have the right to not make it only about us. Yeah. If you ask Paul, I think he'd echo something that Martin Luther King Jr. said. That we're only free until we're all free. That freedom is not an individual issue, but freedom is a collective issue. That because we're all connected, because we all impact each other, because how I live impacts how you live, and how you live impacts how they live, until we're all free, none of us are free. Yeah. And so we're exempted from doing anything that pits us towards each other. We're exempted from anything that makes a hierarchy, that splits us apart. We don't have to live like that. We don't have to do that. We're exempted from it because of our faith. Yeah, that's what Paul wrote. It is pretty clear, isn't it? And now Jesus, he could jump in on the bandwagon too, because if you look at some of the stuff that he said, particularly in the Sermon on the Mount, that's this massive sermon he gave that really summarizes who he is and what he's all about. Jesus said this. This is what you need to do to follow me. Basically, this is what you have to do to be religious. feed the hungry, clothe the naked, visit the lonely, care for the sick, and protect the most vulnerable. Whatever you do to them, to the very least of these, you will do to me. Yeah. Turns out we're exempted from not caring for those who have less than we do, and for those who are the very bottom of the society, the voiceless, the marginalized, the oppressed, the forgotten. Yeah, if we take Jesus seriously here, if we actually hear what he's saying, it's actually our religious right, it's our religious freedom, it's our duty to make sure that everyone and anyone is cared for and protected. Physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. It's our religion to make sure that they're seen and heard and valued and protected, even if, and hear me here, I think this is important, even if that makes us have less. Even if that's an inconvenience, even if that's a struggle and makes our own lives a bit more uncomfortable. Yeah, those systems that hurt and exploit, we're exempted from that. Those ideas and practices that dehumanize, we don't have to be a part of that. Those values that divide people, we can opt out because of our faith. We can resist that because of our religion. It's right there. Jesus says so. We're exempted from all of that. And now I'm sure we could keep on going. I'm sure we could keep finding ones, but I think that's enough, right, to see a theme arise. Can you kind of get to where I'm trying to go? And I think just even looking at those three are enough to help us ask a question to all the people claiming religious exemption these days. What Bible are you reading? What religion are you practicing? Which Jesus are you following? What God do you know? Because the God that we know, the Bible we read, the Jesus we follow, if we look at those things, we see a completely different set of religious exemptions. I mean, the whole point of our spirituality, the whole movement of it, the whole goal, the defining feature of it is this call to extravagant and indiscriminate love. It's this call to move towards one another, to see one another as our responsibility, to insist that everyone, especially the least of these, is taken care of, to live together in peace and cooperation and love, to create a world where everybody has enough and everyone has a place. That's what our spirituality is about. That's where it all leads. That's where Jesus says we find God, and that's where we find a life that hums with reverence. To say yes to that, to be religious, is to go deeper and deeper into love. Love of God, love of others, love of self. It doesn't lead into a life of protesting vaccine mandates and mask mandates. It doesn't lead to feeling exempted from caring for the most vulnerable. It doesn't lead to making our health system collapse. It leads to the exact opposite. It leads for advocating for the best safety protocols we could possibly have. It leads to getting the vaccine if you can. It leads to making sure our children and our elders are safe. It leads to supporting healthcare. It leads to holding our leaders accountable. It leads to putting our own needs behind the needs of others. Because we are religious, because we said yes to love, that's where that goes. If we're exempted from anything because of our faith, we're exempted from anything that hurts, divides, belittles, dehumanizes, and oppresses. It exempts us from anything that doesn't lead deeper and deeper and deeper into love. That's what we're exempted from. And so I gotta ask, considering all of that, and this is a question asked more towards me than anyone else, it's a question I'm asking myself. With all of that, if that's what our religion is, I gotta ask, why aren't we protesting? Why aren't we out in the streets demanding those things because of our faith? Why are we quiet? Why are we not doing something? Where are our signs? Where's our anger and our frustration? Why are not we having a protest to match theirs? Why aren't we doing that? What's stopping us? Why aren't we saying yes to love in those profound, beautiful, liberating, and important ways? And so that's the question I'm going to rumble with this week, and I invite you to as well. If you consider yourself religious, if you consider yourself a person of faith, knowing that we're exempted from not caring for others, knowing that we're exempted from not trying to create a better world where everyone is safe and protected, how can we live out our faith this week? How can we be religious? How can we say yes to love? Now, there's no right or wrong answer to that, but we do need an answer. We need to do something. So my question to you is, what are you going to do? What can we do? And as we try to do that, may we struggle well. May we do it with love. May we know that's what it means to be a person of faith. May we trust in it, that it will make a difference. And as always, may grace and peace be with us.
May God bless us with discomfort at easy answers, half-truths, and superficial relationships, so that we may live from deep within our hearts. May God bless us with anger at injustice, oppression, and exploitation of God's creations, so that we may work for justice, freedom, and peace. May God bless us with tears to shed for those who suffer pain, rejection, hunger, and war, so that we may reach out our hands to comfort them and to turn their pain into joy. And may God bless us with just enough foolishness to believe that we can make a difference in the world, so that we can do what others claim cannot be done, to bring justice and kindness to all our children and all our neighbors who are poor. Amen.
To seek His kindness, no eyes to see the pain, no heartbeat of compassion, no empathy remains. How will they hear the message that Jesus is alive? How can they know the truth unless it's through our has no hands except your own, to reach the world and make it known. His love can change humanity by your touch alone. Christ has no hands except your own. Truth is scattered darkness, no candle in the night, no illumination, no justice, no our own, touching the desperate, feeling their pain, reaching the hopeless in Jesus' name, in Jesus' name. Christ has no hands except our own, to reach the world and make Him known. His love can change humanity by our touch alone. Christ has no hands except our own. No voice, no eyes, no hands, except our own. We are the hands of Christ, the hands of Christ.
So my friends, that is everything for this week. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for connecting with us. Our hope and our prayer, as always, is that you leave here different. That you pick something up that you can take with you. Maybe it's just knowing that you are enough. Or maybe it's some questions that you can ask to help you grow in your faith and spirituality this week, to help you make a difference in the world. Regardless of what it is, we hope you leave here a bit more alive than when you came in. Before we give you a blessing, a few things to pass on to you. If you want to keep exploring these things, if you're like, oh, I never thought about that stuff before, or I really want to be seen and heard and actually connect with people, click the link below. That will take you to a Zoom call where we have some amazing people ready to lead a conversation about what we heard, and we can share what it is that we felt and what we experienced. You are all welcome there, so click below for that. And then later on this morning at 11:45 Mountain Standard Time, we're going to have our first town hall meeting as a church community. So by clicking another link below, you'll be taken to a Zoom call that will pair you with the church that's there in person. And we're going to have a conversation about what it means to be the church right now, as we try to come out of this pandemic and resume some in-person stuff and some online stuff. How can we be the church together? What are we going to be working on? How are we going to get through this? How are we going to begin with our hearts? How are we going to do that together? What questions do you have? We want to hear those. So if you want to get in on that, click the link below, and that will take you to a Zoom call. And some people on that end to receive you. If you are liking what we do, if you're like, man, this is good for my soul, this makes me feel like a better person, I think more people need this, this is really important work, there is a link below that will take you to our donations page, and we would love it if you would donate to our church. Whether it's through buying some gift cards, making a one-off donation, or setting up recurring donations that come straight out of your bank account, it all supports our work of meaning making and connection making and purpose making, and trying to help people navigate through this really dark and sticky world. And so if you are able to, please click on that link and donate to our church. But again, we're just really grateful that you're here. It means so much that you have joined us for this. And so as we head out into whatever is next, my friends, may you take a deep breath, may you put your feet on the floor, and a blessing for you. Let's remember what we heard today, that you are enough just as you are. That no matter what people have said, no matter what you have learned, no matter what you have picked up along the way, you, just as you are enough. And knowing that, may you go from this place and may you live a life of love, peace, and justice, and work to make it a world where everybody has enough and everyone has a place. So may you go in peace, may you go in love, may you go and do it loudly. We love you, we miss you, we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.